Welcome to another episode of The Financially Free Investor, where you will learn information and strategies on how to become financially independent by investing in real estate, something that is not taught openly in our society today. Financial freedom matters so you can live a bigger life, retire early, and do what matters most to you. Get ready to hear tried and true methods to becoming financially free with your host, Jordy Clark. All right, welcome into another episode of The Financially Free Investor. Hey guys, today I'm really excited to learn from our guest. So I'm just going to jump into his intro, and then I want to hear more of his story. We were kind of chatting a little bit before we started recording, and this is going to be good. So Fernando Corona lives in California. He is an out-of-state investor investing in Atlanta, Georgia, who made his way into the real estate market in search of time freedom. He understands that in order to be a great entrepreneur, he must first be the man that his family needs him to be as both a husband and a father. His goal has always been to enjoy each and every day doing what he's passionate about, even if it means taking multiple steps back to start over. In the short 3 years of entrepreneurship, he and his wife have been able to achieve the desired lifestyle of traveling while working and taking days off to go to the beach with their 17-month-old daughter, all while allowing cash flowing investments to pay for their lifestyle. They currently invest in a rent-by-the-room model where they turn a 4-bed, 2-bath into an 8-bed, 2-bath to increase rents that would normally be $2,000 a month up to nearly $6,000 a month, while simultaneously helping solve the problem of affordable housing. He believes that knowledge is nothing without application, and it's our feedback from those experiences that help create the wisdom we need to succeed. So with that being said, Fernando, welcome in, buddy.
What's up, Jordy? Hey, thanks for having me on, man. It was a little long-winded. I didn't realize she was like, man, I should have shortened that bio a little bit, but thanks. Appreciate that.
No, it's great because I think it gives people a pretty good background of where you're at today. And I mean, the thing I love about the intro is it's not necessarily all about the money, right? Like time freedom is really what we're all after. That's what really financial freedom and all of this stuff is about, is the fact that you get to live a life by design versus, being stuck in a job that you hate, working 40 hours a week for the next 40 years. Like that's a miserable life.
Yeah.
So dude, I think it's very concise. I think it's good. And it's amazing what you've done in the last 3 years. So, congrats. It's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, thanks, man. And you're spot on in terms of obviously like getting the time freedom back. But I think you'd probably agree as an entrepreneur, if you don't like massively obsess or enjoy about what you're doing every day, then you're probably, it doesn't matter about the time freedom necessarily. Because even if we had the time freedom, we would probably still be doing what we're doing. And we just look to turn on different levers to maximize our time back. And I think that problem solving is what keeps us going too. It's like, so you achieve the time freedom, you achieve the money, like, well, what's next? Well, what's next is like, how do I get more creative to get the same results with less time? And then or how do I think right now I'm in a state where, how do I train people, whether they're kids or they're adults or young adults or older than me, how do you get them into a mindset of abundance? Right, a mindset of that I can build confidence, and I know what confidence stands on, things like that, right? And then you get sort of fulfillment from that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, dude, let's step back. What happened 3 years ago? Well, before that, actually, let's jump into your story. Why don't you tell your story, and then I'll ask some questions.
I guess it does start. I mean, obviously, it starts way more than 3 years ago. But how do I even start this, man? Dude, I always need to start at my grandparents. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna be crazy long. But at the end of the day, like my grandparents came from Mexico. They came with 9 kids, right? My dad had 9 brothers and sisters. My mom has 6. They both came from Mexico, and I always start there because that's how I'm here. I literally am here because they took that risk. There's different levels of risk in each generation. right? I'm not saying that the level of risk I'm taking today is any more than the risk that they took to leave their home country, not speaking the language, to come to the land of opportunities. But I'm massively grateful for them, because now I can be on a podcast talking to Jordy. Like, who would have thought, right? If they, they're well, so that's kind of where I go. My dad, he came here when he was 10. He ended up playing soccer at UCLA. He did get in because back then they had that whole affirmative action plan, and so he got in because of affirmative action. But then he became a walk-on the soccer team, and then he got his degree. So there's a lot of cool stories before mine that obviously led to my story right now. And so at this moment, man, I would say the story starts, 3 years ago, when I was in a W-2 job, six-figure earner. I mean, your typical story, right? Six-figure earner, W-2, leaves and does all this stuff. And I thought, like, that'll be me. I'll be having this amazing story. It's like, I got my degree in engineering. I should be able to figure out this entrepreneurship relatively quickly. And in the first 6 months, I made $300. So, I'm not sure if who's are only entrepreneurs listening to your podcast typically, or do you have W-2s looking to switch over to full-time entrepreneurship? What do you typically have?
We've got a good mix. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's entrepreneurs listening to this, like, man, I remember that, like those first few months, if you go off on your own. So then that's pretty much it, where 3 years ago, I left my job completely cold turkey, thinking I could just say, like, I could just figure it out. And it took a while. But I think you'll agree, where I think growth starts to become exponential, where in the beginning there's a ton of friction. You don't have the skills in the marketplace. You don't even know what the marketplace wants. You're trying to figure out real estate. You're trying to just learn terms like, what's wholesaling, what's cash ROI, what are these like super basic terms. But you're listening to a podcast, and you're just have no idea what all this stuff means. So there's a massive learning curve. And then once you go through it a little bit, little by little, that learning curve starts to really uptrend. And then you see different results. But since then, we had a killer year last year, and we were luckily enough to enter different industries in e-commerce and drop shipping, in real estate and private equity. And so from building multiple income streams, and we were able to have a successful year. And that was, so I went from leaving a six-figure job to making $300 in 6 months, to then making, let's say, a quarter, or quarter of what I was making when I left, to then doubling, to then tripling. So it's like being able to see that growth. It's believing in yourself. I don't want to sugarcoat this, right? Like, I had moments where I cried. I had moments where I broke down. My dad, was there, and my wife has been there. And so it's just, I want to be real with the people that are listening to this, that, it's okay. If it gets hard, it's okay, because you'd only, Alex Hormozy says, you only lose if you give up. So that's how I'm here today, man. I haven't given up.
Yeah. No, that's great. So what were you doing when you were in the corporate world earning six figures? And did you get a degree to get that job?
Yeah. So I got my degree in mechanical engineering.
Okay.
And the reason why, if you were to ask me, it's because they said I was good at math. I was in high school and I got fives on my calc tests. And they said, hey, what can you do? I'm like, I don't know. What can I do? Like, you can be an engineer. All right, let's go do that. And so I went to go get my engineering degree. Then you realize, even when I graduated and I was making a good income as an engineer, I worked as a sales engineer, partnering with Tesla and SpaceX when I was like 22 years old. So from 22 to 24, and which was dope. I helped them structure the Gigafactory in Reno. I helped them build out their plants in Fremont. I got to see the Model 3 and the Model X before it even came out. So it was awesome, man. It was a really cool career experience, and I probably could have been there still, to this day. But I think I just thought, like, I'm 24. I don't know if this is how life is supposed to be lived. Like, I don't think I'm just supposed to have 2 weeks vacation a year, just make an income, and then travel when I'm 65. Like, that something seems a little off here. So then that's where I made my first decision to quit my first job and then just travel for a year.
Was there something that you listened to that kind of sparked that idea? Because I mean, by society standards, right? You go get a degree, which they told you to go get that degree in high school because they're like, hey, you're good at math, so you
Yeah.
should be an engineer because that's what you should do, right? Which is like, well, do you even like engineering? Like, is that a passion of yours, right? Like the problem I think with our school system right now is like they're like, hey, if you're good at whatever, then here's your list of potential careers. And
Yep.
like a buddy of mine is a high school teacher. I went to high school with him, and I was like, dude, what's the point of high school? And he's like, the point is we want kids to get used to sitting at a desk for 8 hours and listening and doing what they're told. And I'm like, it's totally designed to create employees, which is
Create a
fine.
worker. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, dude, my rub with it, my problem is like there's no input from like, well, what do you want to do? Right. Like go experience whatever for 3 or 4 years and see if like you're passionate about it or not. Like it's just like, hey, you got to go to school, got to get good grades to go to a good, post high school education to blah blah blah. Like they spell out this path, and it's like, well, like you said, what? That doesn't seem right. Uh,
Yeah. So
so
how about, yeah, go ahead.
how did that click in your mind? Because I think for most people, dude, you're working with Tesla, SpaceX, like that's a dream gig with a great company. That Elon needs to hurry up and get my truck done, by the way. But no, like what was the impetus that you were like, hey, I'm gonna go travel for a year?
Man, I mean, you work in a corporate environment, and so what do I want to say about that? It's what do I want to say? Man, there's a pain that people will feel, and people will feel pain differently. But for me, there was pains of I don't really have control of my income, and I really don't have control of my time. And I think if I give somebody all my time, man, I was just one of those kids. I was an engineer, right? So I'll just run the numbers. All right, man, I'm giving away this much of my time per week, per month, per year. That's this much time I'm giving them over 60, over this time until I'm 65. And I get this much vacation to travel and I'll be 65 and old. I just like did these calculations, and I just logically, if you open it up, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, it wouldn't make sense to anybody. It's like you give this much of your life away to something, and this is your return on life investment, like from your time. You would look at it and be like, this doesn't make sense. There has to be another way. And so I think it's just thinking that, right? There has to be another way. And once you have that thought, then you just like, well, what else is out there? And I think that's always the thought that I've had, which yeah, I think that's probably the thought that I've had since I was a kid. If I was going to play soccer or something, I used to play down here. There's a company, sorry, not a company, a team called LA Galaxy. And so I played with their 18s when they were just starting out, the under 18s. And it's because I used to think like, okay, I could play in this soccer team, but like, what about that one over there? And it's just like believing that like maybe I could make that, and maybe things can be different. And same thing about going to the right colleges, going to different colleges, getting a certain degree, and graduating from a degree, getting a job, like just continuously asking myself, there has to be another way, or what's another way that I can live life or do something. And maybe right now, I don't know if in your life you're solving certain problems, like you told me in your business, and you're probably thinking after your 1 year, the second year you're thinking, well, there has to be another way. Like how else can I run my business to scale it, to grow it? So we're continuously asking ourselves as if we want to continue to grow and get better.
Let's fast forward a little bit. You take a year off.
Yep.
What'd you guys do?
It was just me, and actually I went with one friend to Thailand. Then we lived there and traveled around for a month, and then I went to Europe and I worked at a hostel in Barcelona for a few months. So there was we just hopped around, like just that's it. Like that. We seriously had I had money saved up, and I could have bought a house, and maybe I should have, but I didn't listen to Jordy's podcast at the time. And so I didn't have the knowledge to know that I could invest in real estate. So I just had money saved up, and I said, well, do I want to buy a house to, again, I wasn't thinking about real estate investing at this time,
Yeah.
but I said, do I want to buy a house, or do I want to use this money and just go travel and like live a life or something, right? And at the time, somebody would have said, dude, you can go and invest that and use the passive income to go travel. It's like, oh yeah, I could have done that. I could have gotten put into a house, done a burr. Now I own the property, and I still have the money that I can go and take and travel. So of course, in retrospect, there's a lot of things I could have done. Yeah. Quick question for you. If with your beliefs and thoughts about the school system, you've got 3 kids. So how are you gonna, manage their whatever mindset development or knowledge development in that school setting? What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, great question. So you just part of the social circle I'm in, GoBundance, we were kind of talking about that. A lot of the guys are homeschooling or they have homeschooled. So we're homeschooling our kids now. My daughter's in 2nd grade, and today is actually her first day of homeschool. So we've got in our house, we've got a space set up that's like totally just school area. And, of course, we're going to teach all the normal topics, but we're maybe going to be a little bit more fluid and just do more life experiences versus like, hey, you got to sit here and do this so that you can take a test next week. Obviously, we want to make sure that if she wants to go to college, she's going to be well prepared. She's going to be well integrated in society so she can function with other people and have friends. And she's very outgoing, so I don't think she'll have a problem with that. But like, dude, if I want to go and hop in our RV for 3 months and we go tour like Civil War sites and learn about the Civil War when she's 14, like that is way more memorable than her sitting in school. And like, dude, I don't know about you, but I don't remember much of middle school or high school or elementary school that like actually is useful today.
Yeah.
Like geometry is important, but for 95% of the world, like, I'm not doing Pythagorean's theorem to figure out how to put a real estate deal together, right? Like, so, and it's going to be more like, well, what do you want to learn? Right. Like we went on Saturday and we went to a planetarium that's here, and there's just a bunch of like scientific stuff that we were playing with, and learned how tornadoes are made, and just tons of cool stuff that like we actually have a vested interest in how she grows up. Versus like, I don't feel like as well-intentioned as her teachers were, like they don't really care what she does with her life, right? Versus
they have different intentions. Their intention is to get this girl to pass that grade. That's the end of the intention. Yeah.
So, I mean, plus like, dude, I read a statistic that's like 95% of the time you'll spend with your children is in the first 18 years of their life. And the rest of the 5% of the time that you spend with them is the rest like that you get in their life, right? So
that's scary.
Yeah, like, dude, she's 7 years old now, and I'm like, man, we have 11 summers left, 11 years left with her. Like, I just look at how fast the last 7 years went, and I'm like, man, well, I want to try to soak up as much time while she still wants to be with me as possible. And so, homeschool is going to work out, I think, for that. Ask me in 5 years, but yeah, that's what we're doing. Cool. There's been a lot of very successful people who have done it in GoBundance that, I'm kind of taking advice from and just hopping on their path because they've kind of stumbled through it. And yeah, it's good.
Cool, man. All right. No, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's good to know. My daughter's only 17 months, so I still got a little while, but it's still good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus there's all the political reasons that I'm just like, this is, we won't go there on the podcast.
We don't have to dive into that one. Not today. Different podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So you took a year off, and then what happened when you got back? I'd be super interested to know. I spent 2 years overseas as well. I was only in one area though, but how was it coming back?
Yeah, coming back, I thought that I thought that the travel bug was like off the shoulder. I thought whatever I was feeling mentally and internally um, was gone. And I thought, I could just come back, enter the real world, and now I'm ready to live the life, and get to work and put my head down and hustle. And so I came back and I contacted, I networked, and still in those previous 2 years, this is where I really found the value of networking because I had connected well with the VP. He was like the executive vice president of the company. And so he had gone to a different company and I reached out to him just saying, hey, I'm looking for work again. Like, is there anything that you know of available, whatever. And he's like, hey man, actually we're looking for a product marketing manager. And it's for an engineering company. So like you're an engineer, we'll teach you the marketing. Do you want the position? You want to come interview? And so they flew me out to the East Coast and I interviewed. I ended up getting the position. And so now I lived in Connecticut for a year for that company, and it was amazing. I mean, to this day, I'm so grateful for the people that I've met and the managers that I've had that just been like instrumental to, I think, to my continuous growth. And I got to travel to like Shanghai or yeah, just different countries, Singapore, and was in Tokyo, right? All for work, being able to train different teams out in different countries in Mexico, obviously across the US. So that was really fun. Like it was a really cool job. And again, still like salary was great. They paid for my whole, like my moving, they paid for all my travel. So it was a cool experience. And then they moved me back to California to open up a new division. But I think this is where it started to hit me because they said, hey, Fernando, you've been doing a good job. We want you to open up this new division. We'll send you back to California. And it'll be and these two other guys that'll start building out a team. And you're going to help, be the senior product marketing manager for that division. And at that point, I was still getting my salary, but there were no bonuses. There was no equity stock options because I had educated myself more of what's available. Right. And so at the time I was like 26 or 27. And I thought, man, this is an awesome opportunity. And like I said, I'm grateful for the opportunity. So I'm not like saying, they were just trying to take advantage or whatever. I don't think that's the case. I think they were just like, hey, we're giving you this opportunity. It's going to be a massive learning experience. And unfortunately, we can't give you a bonus. We can't give you stock options. Like even if you grow the company that, the first few years to whatever they wanted to grow to like 20 million and that division. So even if I help them, right, like at the end of the year, they're still going to shake my hand and say, thanks, Fernando. Like you did great work. Here's your salary. And for me, after that first year, again, it's just that realization, like, man, there has to be another way. And so at the end of that year, so now I would have been in that company for 2 years. I I just said, hey guys, like I'm putting in my 2 weeks. I'd rather spend the next 5 years from 27 to 32 building something for myself because at the end of the 5 years, I can give myself more than just a salary. Right. And that was the mindset that I had. And so I'm 30 right now, and we're trajecting really well. My wife will tell you like we've had to make a lot of sacrifices, and we're still making a lot of sacrifices. Like I don't drive a Lambo. We don't have this massive house, right? Like we're living constrictively, intentionally, because we know what we're building. But that is still hard. Like that is still hard to do. And so there, as opposed to if I would have just consistently taken, the higher paying salary through these 5 years, it would have been an easier life. It would have been an easier 5 years than the life that we've lived in the past 3 years, and the life that we'll probably live in the next few years.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that like so many people discount that because like you said, like we all look for the instant gratification, right? The big houses, the fancy cars, all this stuff. Yet if you sacrifice and grind for 5 to 10 years, you'll set yourself up so that you never have to, say no, if you will, to yourself. That's part of my story. Like last 4 or 5 years, it's literally been like, when we started off, we were just like super frugal, investing everything we could, reinvesting it back into real
Yeah.
estate. And like it was a slow growth where like we bought one property a year, right? And then the next year we bought two, and it felt so slow. But then all of a sudden, like we had all this momentum behind us,
Yep.
and people discount that momentum because it's like a train taking off. it starts really, really slow. But if just like you guys did, you get the fundamentals right, you learn to live on less than you make, and you learn to figure out more creative ways, which this is kind of where I want to go. And you find out more creative ways to invest and just cash flow and do things differently, that creates the momentum. And if you just keep on that path and keep questioning and keep asking, like, dude, I'm super excited to see where you guys go in the next 5 years, right? Because you're hitting that like point of critical mass where you've got the momentum and now results are going to start showing up, right?
I 100% agree with you, man. I've been preparing, mentally for that, because that's preparation. It's not like you're doing the work externally, but internally. And there's a chasm. And I like that what you said, right? They're hitting the critical mass of just like you cross the chasm and now you're like, boom, you could be taken off. Dude, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how we both do, man. But honestly, I look up to you as well, to see what you're doing as a man, as a father, as a husband. So, and you're still obviously an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to ask you a couple of questions on your guys' path, because
Yeah.
you had a baby 17 months ago. You're an entrepreneur now. You go from making good six-figure job to you make a few $100 in a few months, which is a big deal. Where did you go from there, and how did you start investing in real estate?
Yeah. So, dude, honestly, my wife was my first private money lender and investor. I had spent, a lot of my money. And when I met my wife, she was looking to buy real estate to invest. And at the time I'd still done a lot of research. So I knew more about real estate. So again, I was like 25, 26 at this point. We were just boyfriend and girlfriend. And she was looking at properties in California. And to me, every time she'd look to analyze a deal, or she would even analyze it, it didn't make financial sense for like a buy and hold. But again, I was, this is her money. I'm not trying to tell my girlfriend what to do or anything, but she was trying for a few months, putting in offers, getting beat out by like all cash offers. And she was very, you're limited with capital here in California, because the most, I want to say the least expensive property you can get here is probably like 600 grand, right? For like a decent property. And that's like small. So again, the numbers, it was just going to be like, you're going to be house poor. There's all these different things that'll happen. So I just suggested it to her. Hey, would you consider investing out of state? I'd never done it. And she's like, huh, like, no, I hadn't considered. And the majority of people they don't realize, I'm not sure about the pricing, where you're at, but when we started looking out of state, we were finding homes for 120,000, 150,000. We ended up, securing a property for $165,000. And so the model that we ran, we got in at $165,000 at a 40% cash ROI. So, making that cash back in 2.5 years, the numbers just made sense. And so she ended up investing in that property. And then obviously we got married. And so that was like our first property together that we ran through. And that's how we started getting into real estate investing. And then from there, we actually did have a baby. And like you said, you kind of start a little slow. So we bought that property in 2020. We didn't buy our second property until early this year. And then now, we're in contract in two more and about to be in contract on the third one today. So what you're saying, and you start off a little slow, and then you start hitting, I see us getting into 10 properties by the end of the year. And that's just because of, like you said, the momentum that we're getting. And then that first property, like the main problem that we solved was we didn't want to make $100 to $300, not even $500 per property. That wasn't our goal. Our goal is trying to figure out, how do we make $1,000 or more on one property? And so that our first property right now, we're hitting $3,000 net on that property. And that's just from one, as opposed to, obviously there's other investors who do the burst strategy, who don't lock up any funds, and they're okay getting $100 or $300 per door. So our strategy was different. We had to lock up, funds for 3 years to get that cash ROI. but we're still comfortable with that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And, this just goes to the point that like, there's a million ways to make $1 million in real estate. And
Yeah.
just because, you're doing this and somebody else is doing something else like, doesn't negate what you're doing because it works for you guys. So you guys are able to make these cash flow this much because you're renting by the room, right?
Right. And we add more rooms to a property. So like,
Okay.
I think like I mentioned, a house, we get a house. I mean, I'll tell you the one we're going to put an offer on right now. So the house itself is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath,
Okay.
and it's 2,000 square feet.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to turn that 2.5, we're going to turn the half bath into another full bath. So we'll have 3 full baths. And then the 3-bedroom, we're turning into a 9-bedroom because we have all that additional square footage.
So,
go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but when you're looking for these houses, obviously 3-bed, 2-bath in 2,000 square feet, like most 3-bed, 2-baths are like 1,200 square feet, right? So where are you guys taking,
Yeah, it's taking
making
away square
6
footage.
more
Yeah.
bedrooms? Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
office, second family room, like all those kind of things. Like what are you looking for?
So in Atlanta, because that's where we look, there's something called split level homes. I don't know if you've heard of these before. They're not 2-story homes. They're split level homes. And the reason why they're called split level is like if you walk into the front door, there's 2 staircases immediately as you walk through the doors. There's a staircase going up and a staircase going down.
Yep.
And so you could think of it as a basement. They call it split level, call it basement, but that's why. So there's a ton of empty basement space that I don't really know the history of it, what they used to use these basements for, but the tax assessor records, they don't count the basement as square footage. So you look at this property, you're going to see 1,100 square feet, 3.2, and that's the upstairs portion.
Yeah.
But we're now leveraging that bottom portion as well. That's just been empty space as a basement.
So is this pretty normal to do in Atlanta to finish a basement? Because I mean, we're in Utah and like 95% of houses have basements, so it's not abnormal for us in Utah to have a basement. But I know like California, Arizona, there's a lot of places, Texas, you don't even have basements.
Yeah, it's not normal. I mean, it's not normal in California. In out there, it's definitely started to be normal, especially as you get more investors moving in there. Then they're seeing like they're turning into 2 units. Right, which is one of our exit strategies. If we ever needed to exit, we would just make the top one a unit and the bottom one a unit, and then now rent them out, kind of like a duplex.
Okay. So are your renters? Are you self-managing?
I got a team. Delegation allows me to get into more properties for sure. So I have a property manager, boots on the ground over there that handles everything.
Do you know if they're getting any pushback from prospective tenants on renting the basement that you've now finished and put a few more bedrooms down there? Are they getting?
Am I getting issues from tenants themselves?
No, like you're having tenants not rent because they're like, oh, this is weird. I don't want to live in a basement.
No. So if you look at, there's always two modes of egress. So every room has a window and every room has a door. So and because this is like a split level home, the basement isn't actually underground. It's weird, it is a little bit underground, but not totally underground where they feel like it's actually a basement. Yeah. They more so feel like I just live on the bottom level.
Yeah.
And so we haven't had any issues actually with that. No, so far that's been okay.
Cool. So you're renting by the room, right? So you've got 9 different tenants sharing 3 bathrooms, right. Which I think this is a genius strategy. My brother actually does that with his townhouse and he's pretty much living for free. Right? Like house hacking, but you guys are just doing it intentionally.
Yep.
Does your property manager charge you more because it's arguably more work to place 9 tenants and then deal with 9 tenants and split up utilities, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we use a platform just like Airbnb. It's called PadSplit, PADSPLIT.
Okay.
ad split, and they're only in certain markets right now. They just launched in 2017, and they actually just got a, like, I don't know, seed raise at like 25 million. So they're now just looking to further expand into more markets.
Yeah.
But they started in Atlanta, so that's why we're doing this so successfully remotely, because if you can imagine, they have people looking for affordable housing and they have them apply to get onto patsplit.com. So it's a whole like membership site. They go through background checks, income verification, all that stuff. And then once they pass PatSplit's verification and background checks and all that, they allow them to get booked into one of our properties. So us as landlords or homeowners, all we're doing is preparing the property just like you prepare it for Airbnb, right? You fully furnish it, you get utility set up, Wi-Fi, all that stuff. We're doing the same thing. And then instead of putting it up on Airbnb, we're putting it up on patsplit.com. And once we put it up on patsplit.com, just like Airbnb, right? Airbnb books the guest into your house. Patsplit.com is booking the tenants into our properties. Okay. So the property manager doesn't charge us more. They're still charging us 8% because they still have to turn each room. They still have to go and clean the house every 2 weeks, do the lawn care, take care of tickets, fix pipes, whatever, fix windows. So they still have to do all that stuff that a normal property manager would do. So we're still getting charged 8%. PadSplit does take a fee as well for placing the members, but man, the one that we just launched, within 3 weeks, all 8 rooms were booked. So
what's your normal booking like? I mean, with a single family house, it's easy because it's a 1-year lease, right? Like, and
like, what's our occupancy rate?
Yeah. Like, how long is someone normally staying in a room?
Yeah, so right now we have people that are staying still for 16 months. Since we first launched, there's people still there, 2 of them in the house, but average stay I'd say is like 6 to 8 months. Yeah, and I think it's starting to lean into like 8 to 10 months. It's crazy. It's like almost having a long-term tenant without having a long-term tenant, and then obviously getting more for it. But it really is solving the problem of affordable housing. This isn't for everybody. Like, this is going to be your college kids, your workers, single workers that are working at an airport or working at Amazon warehouses, grocery stores, that need a place to, they don't need to put a massive down payment, right, or a deposit. We don't ask for like first and last month's rent. So and they get all utilities paid for. They don't need to bring their own furnishing. So it's a way for them to really get on their feet. That's the idea, that they're there for, let's say, 6 to 10 months. They save up, and then they can go and build up their, their credit score, their deposit, and then go out and get their own place.
Yeah. That's awesome. How did you guys stumble into this strategy?
Yeah. So I think I mentioned to you that Diego out of Go Abundance, he's been pretty instrumental in the mentorship for my wife and I. Okay. When we first started getting into out-of-state investing, and he connected us. I don't know how he has a network right all across the US, probably maybe through Go Abundance. And so he connected us with an agent out there, because we told him like, hey, these are our goals. Like, we believe there's a different way to make $1,000 or more. And we've seen people do it with basements, or do it with these other properties. And, do you know anybody who would know anything about this? He's like, oh, actually, like, I do know somebody in Atlanta who's doing something similar. Let me connect you with the real estate agent. Let me connect you over there. So then they connected us to this person in Atlanta. And at the time, again, when you're looking at Atlanta, all the properties were under $180,000. This was 2 years ago. Now, those properties have appreciated. So they're more like between 200 and 280, but still, relative to California, they're good deals.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And, obviously someone who's just renting a room isn't expecting to pay, for the whole place. So that makes sense. So did you guys find Diego through, I think he's got his coaching program. I think it's Rat Race to 5.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yep.
Cool.
That's how we connected. Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys are doing that. I mean, you've gained a lot of steam. Is this, looking forward, is this what you guys are going to continue to do? Or is there something else that you guys are looking to do in real estate?
As of right now, we, like, from what I've learned, they say, and at least what I've learned in experience and what I've learned from books, maybe you'll agree, but you once you find one thing you're really good at and you figured out the system and how it works, like, take it to the moon. And so I think that's where we're at. we're like over here saying like we know the exact system, we have the entire team, like we've done this a few times, and we're going to take it to the moon. Anybody who wants to jump on, jumps on. And then once we get to the moon, I think at that point it's going to be probably partnering with other people who have, I think, taken, let's say, commercial real estate to the moon, because in order to offset the passive income, because this is a cash flow play, like we're really investing into these properties for significant cash flow.
Yeah.
But I know that the appreciation and tax depreciation play is probably going to be more in those high unit commercial buildings that like get rehabbed and fixed up in 5 years, you flip or something. So I think I'm going to eventually partner with somebody and maybe in that space who's has a good handle, and then become, a private money lender or an investor in equity, so I can get some of that depreciation to offset the passive income. I think that's more of like what I'm thinking ahead. Yeah. But for now, yes, we're taking this strategy to the moon.
Cool. And this isn't what you guys are doing full time, right? This is just like a side hustle. This is just you investing.
No, this is me doing it full time. My wife's an educator. She's a teacher, and she's been off the last few months. Again, with our daughter, she was looking for, like, she was in remote positions, but she's just been off the past few months. We just, believe it or not, it's been hard to put our daughter in like a daycare. If they're under 18 months, it gets a little harder.
Yeah.
So, and then during COVID, it was just hard to really find places for her that we felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
So I'm doing this full time. I'm a full-time entrepreneur. I do have other businesses right now that allow like more income to come in.
Yeah.
But in terms of real estate, like this is my full-time thing. And then my wife is an educator and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cool. Well, Fernando, what would you tell somebody who is maybe just getting started on their journey to financial freedom? They just found out that, like you said, there's a different way than, working for the next 40 years to maybe be healthy enough to enjoy life.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with somebody at a meetup, and he's like, man, I got like $65,000, and I don't know if I should buy a house to live in or if I should try to invest it or whatever. Right. And so I'll kind of speak to a person who has that situation. Like they've saved up some money and they're trying to figure out, like, shoot, which way do I go? Especially if they're listening to this. And what I told him is there's a story on, and maybe, I don't know if you've heard this one, where like the way that they used to catch monkeys. The way they used to catch monkeys was they had a jar. They would attach a jar to a rope, and they'd put a banana in the jar. And the monkey would go and put his hand into the jar, grab the banana, but he could never take his hand out because the banana, the jar wasn't big enough to allow for the banana to come back. So the monkey would never let go of the banana. So that's how they would get caught. And so I guess what I'm saying is, like, when you have your $60,000 or $65,000, or you have your job, or you have whatever comfort level you're currently in, ask yourself, is that the banana in the jar that's keeping you where you are? What do you have to let go of so you can actually take off and be more free and start to build a life of freedom? So that's kind of what I'd recommend. It's just first look at what is the banana in your life, and look at what you might need to start letting go of. Whether it's your Netflix and chills, or it's your weekend drinking with the boys. If it is the $65,000, like, what do you need to let go of that's going to allow you to free up your time so you can start to build passive income and live the life, on your terms? I'd probably say that's where you start.
Yeah, that's so good. So good. Because we all have that stuff, right? So knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently on your journey?
Man, knowing what I know now, I feel like that's cheating. I wish everybody was like, man, knowing what I know now, shoot, that would have been amazing. Man, college, knowing what I know now, you start in college, and but I feel like it's a cheating question, because in college I just wanted to party, girls and all this stuff, and so my mindset wasn't ready for the stuff that I have now. But I look at, imagine if I would have had this mindset in college, and I didn't spend my time drinking, multiple nights, or like partying and all this stuff, right? If I just like read more books. I didn't even start reading till I was 24. I didn't understand the value of books, podcasts. I didn't listen to podcasts till I was 24. So what would I do differently? I'd start the process sooner. That's really it. I'd just start educating myself sooner. I would Yeah. Learn how to create goals. Look at, who do I look up to? Whose life do I want to live? Like, whose life do I appreciate and do I want to have? Like, starting those questions earlier. Mentorship. Oh, man, yeah. Mentorship. I would have sought out mentorship at an earlier age. I think that's probably what it would have been. If that's like the one thing I could do, just sought mentorship.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to your point, like mentorship doesn't have to be like, you're spending $50,000 a year for a coach. Like it can be a book. It can
Right.
be a podcast. Like that's half the reason I'm doing my podcast is because it's something that lives on, like I can pass this on to my kids and be like, here you go. And
Go listen to this episode 1 to
yeah,
2000.
yeah, like if they want to know this path, then I have it laid out for them, right? And then the benefit of that is if there's other people that want the same thing, well, gosh, why would I be selfish and hold all of that knowledge when I can give it? And I think everyone who's been there, done that kind of a thing feels the same way, right? Like that's why Robert Kiyosaki writes so many books. That's why everyone that has a book really it's to help other people, because they realize that just because they've got it doesn't mean that, if someone else goes and does it, that it automatically takes it away or whatever. So I love that. Love that. Find a mentor in one way or another.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Fernando, thank you for coming on. Thank you for your time. I want to be sensitive. I know we're at the top of the hour, but
Yeah.
Man, I've really appreciated just how you've shown up, your sincerity and authenticity. I'm excited to see where you guys go over the next, couple decades, and you're going great places. And yeah, thanks for coming on.
No, thanks, Jordy. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's stay in touch. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Financially Free Investor. If you found value in this episode or know someone who would find value in this information, please share with them, subscribe, and send us a review.